A good evening to you all, and thank you for joining us here on Rwanda Television News tonight. We do hope you had yourselves a very productive Tuesday. Now here's a sneak peek of our edition tonight. President Paul Kagame noted that with the continent's young tech-savvy population, Africa can compete with the rest of the world and successfully innovate as fintechs continue to dominate in the startup ecosystem. The National Consultative Forum of Political Organizations in Rwanda strongly condemns the actions of foreign countries and various international organizations that have exhibited behaviors aimed at destabilizing Rwanda rather than seeking sustainable solutions to the security challenges in eastern DR Congo. On the international scale, Friedrich Merz, who will likely be the next Chancellor of Germany after election Sunday, has warned that the United States does not care much about the fate of Europe and called for the continent to urgently organize its own defense capability. We're glad to have your company tonight, coming to you straight from the heart of Africa, Kigali, and I bringing you tonight's edition is Martina Abera. Let us start off by informing you that President Paul Kagame noted that with the continent's young tech-savvy population, Africa can compete with the rest of the world and successfully innovate as fintechs continue to dominate in the startup ecosystem. The head of state reiterated this at the official opening of the second edition of Inclusive Fintech Forum held in Kigali, Rwanda. Adam Squizera with more on the report.
Embracing fintech in Africa requires providing adequate opportunities for youth, primarily through government programs focused on enhancing their knowledge and skills. Evelyn Kalungu, Chief Executive Officer of Lupia, highlighted that many young women and youth across the continent still face significant obstacles in accessing digital financial services, primarily due to lack of knowledge and awareness.
And because majority of these transactions happen in cash, it is still very difficult to credit score a small business. So with just $500, my co-founder and I set out on this bold ambition to build the next AI-powered bank for small businesses in Africa, allowing them to have access to loans, investments, and payment opportunities.
Alvin Tan, Minister of State at the Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth, highlighted Africa's immense potential as one of the fastest growing regions globally, driven by its youth and entrepreneur population.
We believe that Africa can set a new standard for digital payments to unlock financial inclusion, catalyze fintech, accelerate economic integration, and drive sustainable growth. Your Excellencies, our dear friends, in an increasingly fragmented world, we have the opportunity to build bridges, address infrastructure gaps, harmonize regulations, and work together across borders and sectors. Because as Nick mentioned earlier on, only by doing so can we harness the immense potential of fintech to transform Africa's financial landscape.
The Secretary General of the CFTA, Wamkele Mene, stated that Africa is making significant strides in the fintech sector. He also emphasized that several protocols have been signed by member states to empower women and youth by enhancing the access to financial technology, fostering greater economic inclusion across the continent.
First, the protocol on women and youth in trade. A protocol that I'm particularly proud of because it takes the continent of Africa beyond expressions of aspirations about empowerment for young people and empowerment for SMEs that are led by women. It actually takes us in the realm of legally binding commitments to break down barriers that prohibit market access, that prohibit growth of businesses that are led by young people and women.
While technology presents enormous potential for Africa's economic growth, President Paul Kagame stated that the continent is experiencing brain drain, with many of the skilled developers leaving Africa to work abroad. He noted this as leaders' weakness.
Africa is experiencing a brain drain, with many of our skilled developers leaving our continent to go work abroad. Well, this is really not entirely their problem. They cannot be blamed for that. I think we should be able, some of us, the leaders, to take the blame, partly. Financial inclusion also remains a challenge, and for those who need it the most, particularly women in the informal economy. All of this is happening in the context of global financial constraints. We need to see this as an invitation to put our resources to better use and support each other.
The head of state expressed confidence in the trajectory of digital development and urged all stakeholders to work together as one team to build a more connected and inclusive future.
The story we just heard of the young innovator from Zambia should inspire every entrepreneur to think big, act boldly, and stay focused. Indeed, with our continent's young and tech-savvy population, Africa can compete with the rest of the world and successfully innovate. When you look at our continent's startup ecosystem, fintechs continue to dominate. In recent years, the number of fintech companies in Africa has also tripled. These enterprises, big and small, are fundamentally reshaping our financial services sector.
Figures indicate that financial institutions offering technology-driven financial services in Africa nearly tripled between 2020 and 2024. This growth led to companies generating between $4 billion and $6 billion in revenue in 2020. Projections suggest that by 2028, profits from fintech will reach $40 billion.
Thank you, Adam Squizada, for that report. Now, a statement that was released by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation was released on the 25th of February here in Kigali 2025, titled Rwanda Regrets Measures by the UK. The punitive measures announced today by the UK government in response to the conflict in eastern DRC, where the UK has now clearly chosen a side, are regrettable. It is unreasonable to expect Rwanda to compromise its national security and the safety of Rwandans. The measures do nothing to help the Democratic Republic of Congo, nor do they contribute to achieving a sustainable political solution to the conflict in eastern DRC. The government of DRC has a lot more to answer for than any other party within the DRC itself and in the region that gets away with all manner of violations for reasons that are obvious to all. Consistently not holding the government of the DRC accountable for repeated attacks on its own citizens, including the ongoing indiscriminate bombing of Banyamulenge villages in South Kivu, encourages the DRC to double down on a military path, prolonging the conflict and the suffering of civilians. Rwanda will continue to insist on security guarantees, which the DRC and the international community have so far been unwilling or unable to provide. The perpetual situation of instability seems to benefit directly or indirectly a number of those associated with the conflict. Rwanda is fully committed to working with partner states on the ongoing African-led mediation process and calls on the international community to support this effort, which is the only credible pathway to a negotiated solution. The National Consultative Forum of Political Organizations in Rwanda strongly condemns the actions of foreign countries and various international organizations that have exhibited behaviors aimed at destabilizing Rwanda rather than seeking sustainable solutions to the security challenges in eastern DR Congo. The forum emphasized its unwavering support for the head of state's efforts to safeguard Rwanda's security and sovereignty. This was reiterated during discussions with the Minister of State in charge of regional cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Corporations. We have more of this report.
In a 2-hour discussion, the Minister of State in charge of regional cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, retired General James Kabarebe, explained in details the root causes of the insecurity in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Among them is the country's leadership that has continued to deliberately ignore the root causes of the problem. Retired General James Kabarebe explained to representatives of the recognized political parties in Rwanda that since 1996 there has been a common plan to destabilize Rwanda. Since 2021, when M23 launched hostilities in Bunagana, the Democratic Republic of Congo has repeatedly accused Rwanda, despite the fact that Rwanda has no connection to the origins of the conflict. Retired General James Kabarebe explained that the strength of these parties should not be attributed to Rwanda. You cannot fully comprehend the strength Tshisekedi used, thinking that he could defeat M23 with the aim of later attacking Rwanda. This suggests that the FRDC is far from insignificant, with forces numbering over 100,000. Not all combatants go to the battlefield, some hide. Despite the success of M23, the international community fails to recognize this and continues to place the blame solely on Rwanda. Even when the international community, including the United States or the European Union, imposes sanctions, they target Rwanda as if the problem lies with Rwanda. The issue with M23 has never been Rwanda's problem. Retired General James Kabarebe highlighted that the malicious intentions of certain countries and international organizations towards Rwanda are evident in their persistent focus on Rwanda while deliberately avoiding any mention of the FDLR terrorist group. This group includes individuals responsible for the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda who continue to uphold the same genocidal ideology. According to retired General Kabarebe, this underscores the hidden influence of the international community behind the ongoing issues in Eastern DRC. The fact that MONUSCO assists the FRDC and that the FRDC collaborates with the FDLR makes them accomplices. They are complicit in committing crimes together. It is unacceptable for the international community, including powerful countries that impose sanctions on us, to remain silent on the issue. They should be the first to face sanctions for their role in the problems in Eastern Congo. In this conflict, the international community should be held accountable and sanctioned. Representatives of recognized political parties in Rwanda have expressed that Rwanda should not be invaded by any party pursuing its own interests. They have collectively pledged to work alongside the President of the Republic and strongly condemn the ongoing international stance that has failed to offer a sustainable solution to the security challenges in Eastern Congo.
President Paul Kagame has appointed new leaders to the Central Bank of Rwanda, naming Soraya Hakuziremye as governor and Dr. Justin Nsengiyumva as deputy governor. Soraya Hakuziremye makes history as the first woman to head the National Bank of Rwanda, and these appointments follow the completion of John Rwangombwa's two-term tenure as governor. Still on the newly appointed leaders at the National Bank of Rwanda, our colleague Enora Gladys has prepared a profile which involves a summary report on the work they have been doing previously.
The newly appointed governor of the National Bank of Rwanda, Soraya Hakuziremye, had been serving as the deputy governor since March 2021 until February 25th, 2025. Before that, she served as the Minister of Trade and Industry from 2018 to March 2021. From June 2016 to October 2018, she was the Senior VP, Credit Risk Manager, Bank in the United Kingdom. She also served as the Senior Advisor to the Minister in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of Rwanda from 2012 to 2013, where she provided strategic guidance and coordinated key initiatives, including Rwanda's successful UN Security Council campaign. Prior to this, she served as BNP Paribas Group, Fortis Bank, the Bank of New York Mellon, where she had responsibilities including audit, risk management, and overseeing corporate actions for global asset management clients. Soraya Hakuziyaremye holds a master's degree in business engineering from Solvay University in Belgium and a postgraduate degree in international management from Thunderbird University in the United States of America. The newly appointed Deputy Governor, Dr. Justin Sengiyumva, has been serving as the Senior Economic Advisor at the United Kingdom Government's Rail and Road offices since April 1, 2016 up to today, February 25, 2025. Before that, he served as an economist in the Department for Work and Pensions in the United Kingdom government. In Rwanda, he served as the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education from March to November 2008. He also worked as the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Trade and Industry in Rwanda from June 2005 to March 2008. Regarding his education, Dr. Justin Sengiyumva holds a PhD in economics from the University of Leicester since 2011 up to 2015 and a master's degree in economics from the University of Nairobi in Kenya. Enora Gladys, RwandaTV News.
Not moving far from that, former Governor John Rwangombwa reflects on his 12-year tenure, highlighting key reforms aimed at strengthening the central bank and boosting Rwanda's economy. In an exclusive interview with our colleague Placide Nyirinshuti, he goes deeper into these transformative changes.
I think we've had a lot of reforms and transformation in our work as a central bank, as a regulator and as a monetary authority. We've had a lot of legal and regulatory reforms on the financial stability side. We've built the capacity of our staff, we've built the operating systems, we've modernized our operating systems, we've automated our processes. And on the monetary policy side, we've moved to a forward-looking monetary policy framework that really bases on forward-looking data and facts about the direction of the economy and takes the decisions based on facts. So our analytical capacities has really improved, and we are a bank that is able to attract and retain good skills from the market. We are highly competitive in terms of attracting quality staff, and so we still have a long way to go as an institution, but at least we are happy with how far we've gone and where we are today, and happy to assure the economic actors and that this is an institution that can be trusted in terms of the economic management and on the financial stability side. And it's an institution that works with other government institutions and other stakeholders. We are not an island at all. And whatever we've achieved, we also rely on our collaboration with other institutions, and we appreciate that. So last year we just approved a digital transformation strategy. We just finalized our restructuring of the bank. This is to position it at another level to continue dealing with the changing landscape that we operate in, both on the economic side but also on the financial stability side. So, yeah, I would say it's still a growing and in a transformation journey, but we are in a good place.
In Rwanda, approximately 5,000 small and medium-sized enterprises with a capital of less than 500 million Rwandan francs have integrated technology into their operations to enhance credibility and gain the trust of financial institutions. We have more on this report.
Before adopting technology in her business, Marie-Claire Kamagajo relied on manual bookkeeping based on her own understanding. However, after integrating technology, her business improved and financial institutions began to trust her more. She shares a similar experience with entrepreneur Uwase Ingabire Dorcas. Ishiga told us that their system could be a great help in monitoring our activities, such as tracking what we have retailed, what we sold, and what is left. This way, we can determine whether we made a profit or not. After we started using technology in our services, things became easier for us to work with the bank. This has allowed us to better understand how we can repay our loans and also assess our financial capacity to take out additional loans. At the inaugural FinTech conference held in June last year, a resolution was made to promote the adoption of technology among up to 5,000 small and medium-sized enterprises, with an investment of no more than 500 million Rwandan francs. This initiative, known as Rwanda Imbaraga SMEs Ecosystem Rise, is a collaborative effort between the Monetary Authority of Singapore, the Central Bank of Rwanda, and the Rwandan Development Fund. The Central Bank of Rwanda emphasizes that integrating technology into business operations enhances credibility, making financial institutions more inclined to trust and support SMEs.
So that's one of the initiatives that we thought as a central bank we should be part of, to make sure that our SMEs have the right tools, but also can be able to use alternative credit credentials, because you know that if I'm a shop owner in some neighborhood in Kigali, or an upcoming designer, even in the rural areas of Rwanda, I want to expand, the first question that a bank or microfinance will ask is, do you have collateral? And most of these young entrepreneurs don't have property, don't have livestock, don't have land. But using those data, actually, you can be able to assess their creditworthiness. And we want to pilot this project to see that these SMEs get access to unsecured loans, but the data that you've collected about those SMEs will give you confidence that they're able to repay a certain amount of your loan.
Currently, only 30% of Rwandan adults own smartphones, and 53% of the population is technologically literate. The Minister of Education, Joseph Nsengimana, says that the Rwandan government has made technology a top priority across all sectors, ensuring its adoption is inclusive and accessible to all.
Central to our vision is the belief that technology must be inclusive and accessible to all. In Rwanda, we are working to ensure that fintech solutions benefit not just the urban elite, but all citizens, from Kigali to the most remote villages. Our goal is to equip all Rwandans with the tools, knowledge, and resources to engage in and benefit from the digital economy. Through partnership with regional and global institutions, Rwanda is positioning itself as a beacon of policy development that fosters innovation while remaining inclusive.
In Rwanda and across Africa, 93% of businesses are classified as small and medium-sized enterprises. However, only 27% of these businesses have access to financing from banks and other financial institutions.
Still on the Inclusive FinTech Forum, as Africa pushes for economic transformation, closing the funding gap remains a critical challenge. The governments on this continent are spearheading efforts to attract private capital and leverage development finance to fuel key sectors like infrastructure, manufacturing, and SMEs. In an exclusive interview, Tapelo Teole, the Chief Executive Officer of Capital Market Authority of Rwanda, discusses innovative financial instruments, regulatory reforms, and strategies to position Rwanda as a regional investment hub.
I think just in relevance to the topic, it basically says, there are a lot of companies or innovators in relevance to this who are here, who have projects, or SMEs who have projects, but there is no funding that is actually reaching them or getting to them. And also in relevance to the conference, all what it's saying is that there are basically about 4 countries in Africa that have amassed enormous amount of funding for their startups or for their innovators relative to the other countries where capital is much needed and the capital is not reaching these markets.
Then I would also want to know what are the key barriers that are preventing this private capital from flowing into high-income impact sectors like these infrastructures, manufacturing. You know, they've been also talking about the digital infrastructures earlier in the meeting we're opening. So I want to know what are those key barriers in?
Yeah, I think one of the barriers to capital reaching those sectors, it's because, the smallness of the projects that need funding ordinarily are not able to attract the funding that they need, because majority of the funders, especially the foreign funders who understand the risks matrix of these industries, needs projects that are of a little bit of bigger size. And therefore you find that the ticket size, what you call ticket size, or the projects are just too small. They need very small type of funding, which ordinarily the funders who have the money do not necessarily want to fund at that scale. And then the other issue is the issue of the barrier is the issue of the conduit. You realize that even in domestic economies, the domestic funding structure, the funding is there domestically, but there is lack of mechanism or lack of conduit that is able to aggregate this or put together this funding so that it channels it to these sectors. So those are some of the 2 major issues that I think really are a big problem in creating the funding gap.
On leveraging development finance, how can these development finance institutions complement with private capital to drive economic growth we are talking about?
Yeah, I think in terms of complementary, they need to be the right regulatory infrastructure, environment, the right regulatory environment. You need to have the regulatory framework that is able to necessitate people with funding or people with funds to be able to easily fund this project. And then the other thing is that, there's a need to aggregate, like I said, the private funding, so that you can have various or majority of the funders able to take a risk and not only have one funder coming up together. And then the other thing is, there's that need for de-risking the project. There's a need for patient capital, either from government or from other sectors of the economy, who will be able to provide that patient capital, which is now going to match the private capital in order to de-risk the project, and the project can actually be able to be funded. So I think those are some of the things that I think can act as complementary, because you wouldn't want some private sectors to come into the economy or to come into the sectors to assume all the risks. So you need somebody else or development institutions who are able to get some level of funding support somewhere else to de-risk the project, that is put in some money, the money that is not looking for a short-term return but is looking for long-term return, and then that can be matched by the private capital to attain the funding mechanism for the project.
Someone may want to know the role of the government in that intersection.
The role of the
governments?
Yeah, I think the role of the government really is to create forums, to create networks for potential private capital, together with development institutions, to come together to have a network and an organization around that, number one. Number two, the government also need to, which is also tied to number one, to create a conducive environment for people with private money to be able to bring it to the market. Or the government need to support institutions like Capital Markets Authority that are able to make the environment for funding to be conducive to the ecosystem.
Back to this inclusive fintech forum, which is happening on its second edition here in Rwanda. They've been talking about digital infrastructure. How far is the African continent in that lane of implementing these digital infrastructures?
Yeah.
What are the barriers into it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities that are coming up in Africa for digital infrastructure. Firstly, because a lot of our challenges are specific to Africa, and therefore that creates an opportunity for itself. Number two, which is probably maybe a barrier, like they say, is number one, the issue of funding. The issue of funding need to come in. The issue of scalability of the project, because some of the projects, you scale them in order to serve a certain constituency, and in most of those constituencies, you find that the scales in terms of the numbers are very low. So you need to be having innovators to come up with solutions that are fit for purpose for African markets.
President Paul Kagame, in his remarks, reiterated on the brain drain. African skilled labor who are going out of the continent, which is also another barrier into this. How do you think this can be ended, specifically on our continent, even in this region?
Yeah, I think people are there's brain drain because people are looking for opportunities. And therefore, my take is that leaders in Africa or governments in Africa need to create opportunities by creating conducive environment to entice people to stay in the continent or in the region for them to offer their services. Because otherwise, people are also chasing what is good environment for them or for their ideas to thrive.
Then, concluding, I will also want to know what are the top priorities for strengthening Rwanda's capital market over the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think there are a number of top priorities that we are looking at over the next 5 years. And the immediate need, or the immediate one, is to get the right regulatory infrastructure, regulatory framework. We need to have a comprehensive regulatory framework in terms of laws and regulations that are put in place, that are able to regulate and market conduct, regulate the market practice, and also ensure that financial or capital markets in Rwanda is up to well standard in terms of regulation. And also regulation also could bring some opportunities, because you create an environment because it's how you regulate. That is the priority number one. And then the priority number two is the infrastructure development. As CMA, we are embarking on a number of infrastructure development. First, there's a regulator, and also as some of our entities, to make sure that there is adequate infrastructure in terms of regulation. We don't want people to be sending bundles of paper by a post office or by mail to our office. We want to digitize the whole value chain in terms of application, because it makes it easier for us to do that. And also, it also makes it easier to make informed decision in terms of the data that we can derive from the digitized atmosphere. And then we also need to involve in a lot of market development. We need to get a lot of institutions in the ecosystem, listed entities in the ecosystem, a lot of fund management or funds administrators into the ecosystem, unit trusts. You need to get a lot of products into the market to create investment opportunities. And then on the investor side, we need to broaden the investor base. We need to broaden it, and we need to diversify it. We need to get a number of institutional investors. And within the institutional investors is local institutional investors and foreign institutional investors. We also need to get retail investors. And within the retail investors is the local retail investors, the foreign retail investors, the diaspora investors into our market, so that we just have a proper market in terms of the ecosystem. And also fintech. We have a sandbox at the CMA. We are moving faster in order to broaden its scope and also to play a lot of business development in the system.
Thank you so much, CEO, for making time with us.
Thank you for the interview.
Thank you, Adam Squizera, for that insightful interview. Now, Skol Brewery Limited, a producer of both alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages, marked its 15th anniversary, highlighting a year of significant growth and innovation fueled by strong collaboration between the Rwandan government and local investors. During the celebration, the company reflected on its early days in Rwanda, recalling the ambitious goals set when it first opened its doors. Over the past 15 years, Skol Brewery has successfully innovated and worked alongside local leadership to contribute to Rwanda's development, particularly through the production of homegrown products. Employees who have been with the company since its inception expressed pride in how Skol has prioritized their professional growth, emphasizing the brewery's commitment to enhancing both the development and the expertise of its workforce. Distributors, many of whom have partnered with Skol for the full 15 years, acknowledge the positive impact the company's growth has had on their own business. According to Skol CEO, the brewery's success over the years has been a clear indicator of fruitful cooperation with the Rwandan government, leading to positive changes for both the company and its customers. This cooperation has instilled hope for continued progress in the years ahead. Looking forward, Skol Brewery is committed to the welfare of the communities surrounding its operations and remains dedicated to supporting sports in Rwanda through various initiatives.
This major milestone is a testament to the dedication of our employees, the trust of our consumers, and the strong partnership that we have built all together. Our journey has been driven by the innovation, the resilience, and the commitment to excellence. As we look to the future, we remain focused on growth, sustainability, and creating a lasting impact.
Ngewe icyo mbaza ni kimwe, koko hari umuntu ugihagarara ku nyama muri iki gihe koko? Uretse nitaba umukiriya. We kiriya biteze.
Ariko tayo, aho gusoreza imyenda wibereye kuri telefone kweli.
Ariko ni kuwa mbere nawe wagwa. Wamo? Uracyari wose? Icyo nakubwiraga wa muntu niko ye. Umuntu w'umugabo ku bukwe bwe akambara kositimu itukura iciye n'amaboko noneho. None se uyisuza?
Si wombwiye ngo ngwe muse.
Ntabwo ari ibi navugaga.
Kuwa mbere kanda akanyenyeri 345 akanyenyeri 2 urwego maze nawe ugwemo. Wikwisondeka.
A warm welcome back to other stories making headlines on the international scene. Friedrich Merz, who will likely be the next Chancellor of Germany after election Sunday, has warned that the United States does not care much about the fate of Europe and called for the continent to urgently organize its own defense capability. VOA with the details.
The Brandenburg Gate, once the frontier between East and West Berlin during the Cold War, was lit up Monday in blue and yellow, marking the 3rd anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The renewed threat from Moscow formed the backdrop to the German elections on Sunday, won by the centre-right Christian Democrats.
I hope that the new government will continue to supply weapons to Ukraine, that it will work together with the European states to develop a major counterweight to Russia and now also to Trump.
US President Donald Trump has overseen a dramatic change in US policy on Ukraine, recently blaming Kyiv for starting the war. Washington has said European security is no longer a priority. After his victory in Sunday's German election, the Christian Democrats leader Friedrich Merz said the Trump administration, quote, does not care much about the fate of Europe.
It is clear that we Europeans must now be able to act very quickly, and that we must also organize our own defense capability very quickly.
Merz is a strong supporter of transatlantic ties, and his words mark a seismic shift for Germany and Europe, says analyst Mattia Nelles.
We are, as Germany, shocked by the end of and utterly unprepared for the end of the Pax Americana, the end of America providing security for Europe. And we now find ourselves in a difficult position to organize the transition away from US being the leading provider of security to a more European-driven approach, not just to Ukraine, but to organizing our own self-defense. But Merz has said he's willing to lead on that. And let's see whether we are able to step up.
Can Europe afford to pay for its own defence? Merz will have to change his fiscal stance, says analyst Liana Fix.
He can agree to joint debt on the European level, which the Conservatives always hated. And he can agree to seizing Russian force assets, which has not been done so far, but should be done soon. He has talked about the UK and France having to extend the nuclear umbrella to Germany as a possible pathway.
The Christian Democrats are well short of a majority. Merz has ruled out forming a coalition with the far-right Alternative for Germany, or AfD party, which came second with a record 20.8% in the Sunday vote. The centrist party's so-called firewall around the AfD has been strongly criticised by Washington.
We consider this blockade to be undemocratic. You cannot exclude millions of voters per se.
Instead, Merz is to begin coalition talks with the Social Democrats of outgoing Chancellor Olaf Scholz. In addition to defence spending, cutting migration and boosting Germany's ailing economy will likely dominate the discussions. Henry Richwell, VOA News.
And that VOA story marks the end of our English News Bulletin tonight. Before we close up, let's have a quick recap of our headlines. President Paul Kagame noted that with the continent's young, tech-savvy population, Africa can compete with the rest of the world and successfully innovate as fintechs continue to dominate in the startup ecosystem. The National Consultative Forum of Political Organizations in Rwanda strongly condemns the actions of foreign countries and various international organizations that have exhibited behaviors aimed at the destabilization of Rwanda rather than seeking sustainable solutions to the security challenges in eastern DR Congo. On the international scale, Friedrich Merz, who will likely be the next Chancellor of Germany after elections Sunday, has warned that the United States does not care much about the fate of Europe. And on that note, on behalf of the news production team as well as the technical team, we would like to thank you for sticking with us on RTV News. And I who brought you this bulletin is Martina Abera. Stay safe and have a good night.